Welcome to the Real Estate Investing Failures to Fortunes podcast, the show where we fearlessly dive into the untold stories of real estate investors' greatest setbacks and how they turned those failures into resounding successes. I'm your host, Kate Berry, and we're talking with real estate investors across the country to learn exactly how and why they failed, and how they took that failure and turned it into a powerful lesson for their business. So come along with me, Kate Berry, on this transformative journey from failure to fortune. I invite you to join our supportive community where together we can inspire, educate, and motivate each other to achieve all of our real estate investing goals. Welcome to the Real Estate Investing Failures to Fortunes podcast. I'm your host, Kate Berry. On this show, we dive deep into the journeys of real estate investors and agents who have experienced failures, but are willing to share the lessons learned that help them turn those failures into fortunes. I am thrilled to be here today with our guest and also my dear friend, Davey Cadran. Davey is a commercial underwriter specializing in habitational insurance risks with a global carrier, and previously was a personal lines agent. So thanks, Davey, for being here today. And I would love to learn more about what it is you do and what habitational insurance risks are, and to hear your story. So thank you so much for being with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really looking forward.
So firstly, let's talk about how you got interested in insurance. How did you get started in this business?
Well, I had previously worked in sales, doing like B2B sales and also straight to consumer sales for like packaged goods. And then I hit a point in my life where I was kind of reassessing what I wanted to do. I had left a job that I wasn't particularly happy at. And I saw an advertisement one day with an insurance carrier that they were looking for agents. And in my mind, selling a product is a product, regardless of what it is. Yep. So I said, it's going to take a bit of a learning curve, but I can sell. If I can sell consumer products, I can sell insurance. And they offered me the job, and now I've been in the industry. Next year will be my 7th year.
Nice. Oh, congrats. And was it as easy as selling commercial products?
No, it's not. It is a highly regulated industry, and you really have to know the regulations in the industry. And there's that, and very high ethical standards, and it's a lot to learn, but it's kind of one of those things, like once you get it down, you're able to pretty much run with it. And, however far you go is how far you want to get, like anything else in life.
Right. No, it sounds a lot like being a real estate agent, right?
Yes, exactly.
There's a ton to learn. You have to build a client base, you have to market yourself. You have to, build good relationships with your clients so that you get, that business from them, and also repeat and referral clients. And so, you got started 7 years ago, and now you're really in the commercial space. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. I started in what's called personal lines. So that would be like what you and I have our everyday, like automobile with like renters or homeowners. I started in that space, and then eventually I moved into commercial. I primarily focus on smaller businesses, sometimes some medium ones mixed in, but generally helping small businesses with business owners' policies. I do some commercial auto and packages, but actually a lot of my bread and butter is small business habitational, those small investors that need insurance for investment properties that they've purchased.
Right. Yeah. Let's talk about that specifically, because I think that's really going to be most of our listeners. And, as they are real estate investors who are wondering, what do I need to know about insurance as a real estate investor?
Yeah. So insurance is one of those things that a lot of people don't like to talk about. A lot of people don't always see value in it because it is an intangible product.
Right.
One of the jokes I always used to make, though, is that when your building burns down, suddenly it becomes a very tangible product. When they step in and rebuild.
You know exactly what it's for. Yes.
Yeah. But it is important. It on multiple fronts. It's to protect you. It's to protect your investment. Sometimes it's required, especially if you have to take out financing to purchase a property.
Yeah.
And it's also about a sort of societal moral obligation that we also have to protect other people if they get injured or suffered losses, perhaps on a property that you own. So there's multiple fronts to it. And it's important to know, because when you're purchasing, you may have to like line that up if it's required by a bank. But sometimes people don't really think about the factoring in those costs after purchase and how that's going to affect your ability to monetize a property.
Right. Right. And so is that part of what you do when you're working with your clients, is helping them to analyze, that line item of insurance and how it's going to affect their overall investment?
So my line of work, I actually work with the agents as an intermediary in between me and the client. Now, we are ethically obligated to, at the end of the day, hold what's called the insureds, that would be the investors' interests at heart. It is all about them. We have to put their interests above mine, above the agents, all of that. But I work with them in terms of helping the insured. And sometimes it's, you do a quote, oh, this is good and we're good to go. But sometimes they come back and say, I presented this, the insured doesn't know if they need this, or maybe the cost is a little high. Could we explore some creative solutions to maybe really tailor things to the individual circumstances?
Nice. Well, that's great. And that sounds like, you're helping people really figure out the best thing for them, and, working between, it does again sound a lot like real estate, right? Where it's always about the client's best interest.
Yep.
And it has to be, right? Because if your client's not doing well on their investment, they're not going to necessarily continue to be a client.
Yeah, that, and unfortunately, we have also seen too a tendency for insureds who are the most financially stressed. There is the potential for claims fraud to happen with people who are underwater. So, obviously not saying that's going to happen with everyone, but the potential is there statistically.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah. And so it's important that we price products that are competitive in the market, work for the insured, but frankly, they also have to work for, we're a business. We have to turn a profit too. The margins are very small, but we do have to turn a profit. And so sometimes we're just not going to be competitive, and that happens.
Sure. That's right. So tell me, what is it about this job that you love? Why be insurance for 7 years? It does sound like a difficult, it's not easy, right?
Nope.
You've held to a really high standard, highly competitive. What is it about it that you love?
I love the investigative nature of it. So I work with what's called new business. So I don't deal with renewals as they come up throughout the years. I work with a new client coming in the door, placing coverage for them, and then in the future, it gets passed off to a colleague who handles all the renewals.
Sure.
So for me, I get to investigate, I get to try to customize and meet their needs. And then ultimately, I'm also trying to make the sale with the agent, because it only,
you're the closer.
A sale for them is a sale for us too. So those are the things I like. And I have to be honest with you, it really wish I had discovered this career 10 years sooner, because I feel like for the first time I've found my calling in life, and I don't plan to work in any other industry.
Yeah. Oh my God. Well, that's amazing to hear. I love hearing that. And so, we are the From Failures to Fortunes podcast, right? And you had shared with me before we started recording that you were willing to kind of talk about your personal experience going through a personal bankruptcy. I'd love to hear how that story, how that happened and how you got through it, and maybe how that led to where you are today.
Yeah. So throughout my 20s, I lived a very typical 20s-year-old. I wasn't particularly focused on my career. I liked to travel and have a good time. A consequence of that was racking up credit card debt, which is pretty common for every American. But I was able
Absolutely.
to stay on top of everything. What unfortunately really hit me was the company, a company I had worked for, unfortunately closed down so pretty unexpectedly, and I was laid off. Luckily, I was able to keep things going for about another 5 to 6 months, but the labor market was really hard. It was hard for me to find a job with that replacement level of income where I
Right.
lived.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I had to make the choice that it was best for me to file bankruptcy, start with a clean slate,
Yeah.
and take it from there. And that happened when I was 27. And I had always thought like bankruptcy was something for old people who didn't manage their money right throughout their lives.
Mhm.
So when I got done with it and I kind of sat back, I was like, you're 27 and just declared bankruptcy. Like, you need to get it together
Right.
a little bit here. So I made being financially secure a priority. I built up emergency savings. To this day, I don't have a penny of credit card debt, even though I
Mm.
have credit cards.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. And once I got my personal fiscal house in order, the
Mhm.
momentum of that kept me going on to my next goals. It actually, the insurance job was the first job from that one I was laid off in. So I snowballed it into, well, now I've built myself financially. Let's build myself professionally and
Yeah.
then personally. And you'll be amazed at how much, like, if you start a series of good habits and keep up with it and stay disciplined, it can really snowball into other areas of your life improving.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. I think that it's all about momentum and it's in habits. And it can't happen overnight
No.
necessarily. You can't just go, all right, tomorrow I'm going to be financially secure. It's small little things that you do every single day. That's the
Yeah.
discipline, right?
Yeah.
That's the
And I want to say, like, don't think that because of where you are that you can't get somewhere that you want to be. So, for
Mhm.
example, 6 years ago, I was bankrupt, laid off, and on food stamps. 6 years later, I'm making six figures and am in the process of completing my master's degree. So,
Amazing. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and it can seem demoralizing when you get hit with something big in your life.
Yeah.
But for me, it was like, what are you going to do? Sit there and wallow for years on end? Like,
Right.
it's okay to be sad and reflect on it for a while, but then you got to kind of pick yourself up and keep moving forward.
Yes, that was going to be my first question. Like you said, in your mind, bankruptcy was something for someone that was much, much older and going through something like that in your 20s. And, I think when we were 27, you feel like you're so old, you're so mature, you're an adult. But it's like, you're really still just a kid figuring it out
Mhm.
and doing the best that you can. So, what was that like? And how did you get through the toughest parts?
Well, this is going to sound so corny, but I have been blessed to have really great, close friends and family members that I could turn to talk with. I am not personally not a particular fan of therapy. It's too formal and rigid and clinical for me. Nothing against people who, want to see therapists. That's just me. I like consulting friends and family members, particularly elder friends and family
Yeah, sure.
members
Yep.
who have
Yep.
been through a lot in life.
Yes. Yes.
So having
Great.
that network of people to discuss, and then just that coupled with self-reflection helped to
Yeah.
pick up and move on.
Yep. Yep. To keep going, right? And
Mhm.
yeah, not sit and wallow. to make a change and have a fresh start. I mean, there's nothing wrong with a fresh start. And where you are today, I feel there's probably a lot of people listening that are like, wow, I'd love to be where he is today, right? I'd love to have a six-figure job and, no credit card debt and working towards financial goals and feeling like you're in a career profession that is fulfilling and something you'll continue to build on. So do you think, or how did that experience shape who you are today, and how do you help your clients?
Well, so it's interesting. A lot of the things I do now in my life, I think of what is the profit and loss? What is, gain or loss?
Yeah.
Like, what do I gain by doing this, or what do I lose by doing it? And sometimes that can be simple things. Like the other day, I was sitting around flipping through TikTok, doom scrolling.
Yeah.
And I said, this isn't good. I'm going on hour 2 now. I have books I can read that will fill my brain with more knowledge than this thing will. Like, cut that loss, go to that gain. And that's not to say like we can't all partake in some pleasurable stuff once in a while, but when you start to think about things in terms of pluses and minuses, particularly with personal habits, things like smoking, drinking, stuff like that. Yep. Again, I enjoy a wine once in a while, but I look back to my 20s when I was going to the bars multiple nights a week, and that was fun at that point, but it wasn't adding value to my life.
Yep.
Real value.
Well, it becomes a pretty substantial negative in a bank account way, but there's other ways too: energy, time,
money,
physical health.
Yeah. So a lot of kind of how I transition that into my work life, which my industry in particular is very focused on, is how can we create products, because our products are highly customizable. So it turns into, how can I customize this product to add value to people's lives? And we're also under a moral obligation to not add in things that the customer doesn't need or can't use. That's just pointlessly charging them money, and ethically that's not right. So everything that we do is a series of pluses and minuses for the customer, and how we can really create a product that serves their needs.
Yep. I really love that. Like you said, it can be small, it can be big, but how you do one thing is how you do everything. And if you can really start to think is every single time and have that self-reflection of at least being conscious of it. That's what it really is. You're bringing a consciousness to, all right, I might be scrolling TikTok, but maybe you really need an hour downtime, and you're like, oh, my brain needs this rest. But then you have that other self-reflection of, maybe a podcast, or let's go on a walk, or what's really going to be a better choice in this moment. Then that creates, again, that momentum, right? We're talking about momentum of good choices leading to good choices, leading to healthier, and leading to also a greater confidence in yourself. I know that a lot of people I've talked to on this podcast, and for me, myself, thinking about my own failures or setbacks in life, I'm not as afraid though to take chances anymore, right? Because it's like, I've already been through something really difficult and you made it through the other side, and it actually, propelled you to be better. So, circling back to, what are you working on now? And you said insurance is where you want to do for the rest of your life. And where do you see your career going from here?
Yeah. So right now, like I said, I'm working on finishing up my master's in risk management. I am working towards a promotion soon. It seems to be in the cards. So just got to keep pushing forward. Ultimately, I just want to continue to underwrite. There are some pretty niche underwriting products out there. I'm particularly interested in ocean marine underwriting, which is for ships.
Oh, like submarines?
Like cargo ships, and like passenger ships and stuff like that.
Oh, like Captain Phillips. All right.
Yeah. So there's some niche areas of insurance that I would like to explore, but I'm very happy. I love underwriting. It's don't get me wrong. Sometimes you want to pull your hair out, but that's anything, right?
Yeah, you're right. That's true.
Overall, I love it. It's great.
That's very true. If there's some, if there are people listening right now, or if you've been approached by people who are interested in becoming an insurance agent, what would you share with them if if someone new trying to get into the business?
Yeah, so agent is generally the entry point to this industry. Just about every person I've ever met from the top to the bottom started as an agent.
Yep.
What I will say is that it is, I think, one of the most underrated tickets to the middle class in this country. Not a lot of people think of it because it's not sexy.
Sure.
But not a lot of people think of it as a career choice. What's amazing is that you don't have, all you need is a high school diploma.
Yeah.
You don't have to have a college education unless maybe down the line you want to move up. But to entry level, all you need is a high school diploma.
Yeah.
Licensing to study for it is only about a week or two of studying, and whatever agency will pay for your education and pay for your license.
Wow.
And out the gate, base salary, you're looking at 40 to 50,000 plus commissions on top of that, just to start. I mean, with a high school diploma, that's pretty
that's
good.
Not bad, right?
Yeah.
And everyone needs insurance.
Yes, they do. And one of the good things about COVID is a lot of the companies now are really offering remote and hybrid opportunities. And there is a severe shortage of workers in our industry still.
Wow, interesting.
We're actually experiencing a weird demographic tsunami in my industry right now. A vast majority of the people who work in my industry kind of came up in the 70s and 80s and are about to retire. So the demand in my industry is only going up from here. If you're interested, the jobs are there, and it's a good ticket to some good money. Yes. That's all I can say.
It's great. And I think, this is a real estate podcast, is having a job in insurance. Well, of course, like learning the sales technique is great for any industry, especially real estate too. But are there other things that you learn as an insurance agent or in that field that could help you in your real estate investing career?
Yeah, I was like any average American who isn't in the industry. I knew that insurance was something you needed, but really I didn't know much beyond the very basics. Working in insurance, particularly starting off doing homeowners on the personal line side, I really learned a lot about what is typically covered, what's not covered. Nowadays I, for better or worse, I'll go to visit someone's house and I'm looking at oh, someone could fall over that, or oh, that needs to be fixed. That could be a problem. Your mind just starts looking out for all the risks everywhere you go.
Right. Risk management. Yeah. It's important maybe it is good to have that lens in some ways, or at least have that tool right in your toolbox to be able to assess what those risks would be, and then maybe also the cost of what insurance is going to be for each particular property you're looking at.
Yeah, it's an interesting time period in the industry right now because we have a lot of macro level events that are happening to us. In particular, the pandemic, as everyone is well aware, shot the costs of material and labor through the roof, which has greatly affected the cost of insurance because obviously we're in the business of paying to rebuild things. The other thing is climate change. You can argue about the source of climate change all you want. Everyone has their own opinion. That's fine. But I think we're at a point where it's no longer an argument that it is happening. Why it's happening may now be up for argument, but that it is happening is not. And that, unfortunately, is leading to a lot of it's not that areas are necessarily experiencing events that have never happened before. It's just that they're happening more frequently and more severely. So whereas you might have had, let's say, a given area where they got one really bad flood a year, now you're up to 3 or 4 bad floods a year.
Yeah.
And all of that eventually works its way through the system and shows up in insurance premiums.
Yes, it's so interesting that you say that, because we talk about a lot in economic markets how there's a lot of crunch in markets, and there's a lot of ups and downs and swings in the market that used to be, spread out over a longer period of time, and now we're experiencing them in shorter periods of time. And it does really mess with your costs, because every time something shifts that dramatically, you have to adjust and you have to pivot and maybe sometimes change your resources or your systems or your people. And that's all comes with a cost. So yeah, it's like real estate and insurance, these markets, these industries are not easy to get into right now, but there is a high demand for help,
Yes.
and in terms of anyone looking right now, how would, what would be your advice as to who they should join or how they should join it? Do you like the company that you're with and why?
Yeah, I love the company that I'm with. We are currently, in terms of it in the US, we're very predominantly focused on the Massachusetts market on the commercial side, which is, I grew up in New England, so it's kind of my backyard, so to say.
Yeah, literally.
It's not uncommon for me to talk with agents and say, well, actually, I've been there, or that's just down the street from me. I can go right there and check it out, So I enjoy that. I would say one of the things that I really liked starting out was that I work better in more structured environments. So I went to work directly for a large carrier that had their own inside sales agents, and that structure at the beginning of my career worked best for me.
Yep.
That being said, there are local agencies, independent agents who are also hiring. Typically, you're not looking at as generous of benefits.
Right.
But it's local to you, it's not far. Sometimes they're a little less structured, a little more free form. So if there's people who thrive better in that environment, that could be a way to go for them. Other than that, I mean, just job boards. My first agent job, I believe it was either Indeed or LinkedIn that I saw an advertisement and just applied. So
right. Maybe just get into it. Just get started. Just
sometimes
this,
it's like,
you're, thinking about a job, just go for it.
Sometimes it's like, what do you have to lose?
Right.
Frankly, I did not meet the minimum qualification, the stated minimum qualifications, but I threw my hat in the ring anyways and went through the interviews and learned what I needed to learn. So don't let minimum qualifications and stuff necessarily stop you from at least trying something.
Yes. Yeah. Try something, right? If you're fine, if you're listening to this and you're fine, you feel like yourself are in that rock bottom, or like you said, sometimes it feels like you can't feel hope anymore, right? You just feel like, if you feel that devastated or that lost or confused, you can't stay in that. You've got to somehow break through. And I think that is from trying something new. Right. And it's kind of one of the blessings of being in a position like that, because, right, what do you have to lose if you've lost everything?
Yeah. Yeah. I was down to I think I had $300 left to my name, and I didn't know if I was going to make rent next month. So at that point in my life, I was like, forget it. I'll apply. I literally am on the verge of being homeless.
Right.
So I might as well just try it.
Yep. And look what happened, right?
Yep.
Look where you are now. So it's truly a testament that, going through an experience like what you went through is not a failure of character. It's a failure. People go through failures. We all do. And I think the path to success is aligned with failures, because how do you grow and how do you evolve or learn if everything's just easy? You never will.
Yeah. And I completely agree with everything you just said.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, Davey, all this is going to be in our show notes, but if anyone's listening to this right now and wants to learn more about you or reach out to you, what's the best way for them to find you?
Yes. So in the show notes is my LinkedIn profile. That's the best way to find me professionally. I am not on there a ton, but I do stay on enough and interact occasionally. So if for whatever reason you want to look up my professional experience or interact with me, you are more than welcome to send me a message on that platform.
Okay, lovely. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I feel like I understand the insurance world a little bit better. I understand my agent a little bit better,
Yep. Yep.
And we really enjoyed having you on, Davey. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kate. I really appreciate it.
And thank you to our listeners. This is the Failures to Fortunes podcast, and I'm your host, Kate Berry, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of Real Estate Investing Failures to Fortunes podcast. If you enjoyed today's stories and insights, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback means the world to us. Remember, your journey in real estate is a marathon, not a sprint. Embrace the failures, learn from them, and turn them into your stepping stones to success. I'm Kate Berry, and until next time, keep hustling, stay inspired, and keep turning those failures into fortunes. Happy investing.